Welcome to What the Wolf Wants. This is a story of Tulsa, turnpikes, and terrible decisions. And if you, as you're listening, recognize echoes of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, well, you're not wrong. So let's get started. I'm Susan Smith Nash, your host, and let's have fun. The Turner Turnpike cuts across eastern Oklahoma the way a geologist draws a cross-section, with authority, with purpose, and with a certain blunt honesty about the flatness of the situation. It runs between North Oklahoma City and Tulsa through 90 miles of dry grass, red dirt, and sky so wide it feels personally imposing. The speed limit is 80 miles per hour, which is the state of Oklahoma's way of saying, yes, really, go ahead. And most Oklahomans oblige. On this particular Tuesday in mid-November, the dry grass on either side of the turnpike was the precise color of a cautionary tale. The creek beds were the classic red dirt color of Permian red beds. The blackjack oaks were refusing to drop their leaves. Oklahomans, trees included, do not let go until they're good and ready. The wind, which was in Oklahoma not so much a weather condition as a personality, was doing 30 miles an hour sustained out of the northwest. Vivienne Calloway, late 20s, longish dark hair, sharp, observant eyes, wearing a practical flannel over a geology survey t-shirt, grips the wheel with the calm of someone who has made peace with controlled danger. Sebastian, her twin, same dark, longish hair, more relaxed posture, feet on the dash, is scrolling his phone. Vivienne noticed all of this because she is a geologist and because she noticed everything. She was also noticing the dashboard of the borrowed Tesla, which was currently telling her the battery was at 94%, then 81%, then, after a brief, thoughtful pause, 97%. It had been doing this for the last 40 miles. She had mentioned it twice. Seb, the battery readout is lying again. Seb responded, it's not lying, well, Drew said it does that. He called it dynamic range calibration. Viv responded, Drew called a grass fire an unscheduled energy release event. Drew's relationship with language is aspirational at best. Seb responded, well, he lent us his car. Yes, he lent us a car that is currently having an identity crisis at 80 miles per hour on a turnpike named after a governor. I'm noting this. Seb opened his mouth to say something, and the Tesla made a sound. It was not a normal sound. It was not the polite chime of a low battery warning or the soft tone of a navigation update. It was something between a crack and a pop, originating somewhere in the rear charging housing. And it was followed immediately by a thin blue arc of electrical light that jumped from the undercarriage to the roadside gravel, and then from the roadside gravel to the bone-dry November grass, and then from the bone-dry November grass to what felt, within about 4 seconds, like a very definite opinion about combustion. The Tesla stopped after having pulled onto the shoulder of Oklahoma I-44 Turner Turnpike, and the grass is catching, small, eager, orange flames spreading fast with the northwest wind. Tesla's hazard lights are blinking. The Oklahoma sky behind is enormous and deeply indifferent. The fire had opinions. It shared them rapidly with the adjacent 10 feet of roadside grass, and then with the 15 feet beyond that. The Oklahoma wind took a particular interest. The Tesla's emergency response system, apparently misreading the situation, activated the hazard lights and then began playing a jaunty little melody through its external speakers. It was the kind of jingle you might hear at the opening of a tech product launch. It played, cheerfully and without irony, as the grass fire widened. "Seb, get out." Yes. Well, Viv is playing music." "I hear the music, Seb." "It's a very upbeat song for a fire." In the 7 minutes that followed, the following things happened in an order that later proved difficult to reconstruct with confidence. A passing semi-driver called 911. 2 westbound cars pulled over. A volunteer fire crew from Bristow arrived in a brush truck that had clearly been driven at its absolute maximum capacity for the last 12 miles. A Creek County Highway Patrol vehicle materialized from the direction of Sepulpa with its lights going. The grass fire, working with the wind, covered another 30 yards. The Tesla continued to play its jingle. And someone, it remains unclear who, photographed the Tesla playing its jingle next to a grass fire and posted it to a regional Oklahoma news Facebook group, where it received within 40 minutes 912 reactions and the comment, "This is why I drive a Ram," 17 times from 17 different accounts. In the specific chaos of fire crews and flashing lights and the smell of burning grass and the Tesla's relentless optimistic jingle, Vivienne lost track of her brother. This was, to be fair, because she was attempting to simultaneously call the Tesla's emergency line to explain to a highway patrol officer that no, this was not her car exactly, and contain the low-grade adrenaline surge that was threatening to shift her involuntarily for the first time in 3 years. Wolf shifters and adrenaline had a relationship best described as, well, complicated. By the time the situation was stable enough to look around, the volunteer crew's truck and Seb had departed westbound towards Stroud, with a cheerful wave from someone who appeared to believe Seb was a certified safety liaison from Tulsa. Seb, who was adaptable, had apparently not corrected them. Viv, reading a text slowly. "Don't worry. Caught a ride with the Bristow crew. Back in Stroud by 5. Very friendly guys. Apparently they think I'm from the fire marshal's office." Viv, under her breath. "Of course they do." Ranger Captain Dee Fuentes had worked the Turner Turnpike corridor for 16 years. Muskogee Creek Nation heritage, no-nonsense expression softened by sharp humor in the eyes, badge catching a late light, she looked at Viv's wrist, specifically at a small tattoo, a stylized crescent-and-pawprint, the shifter community mark. Her expression is the very specific look of someone who has seen this before and has an opinion about what comes next. She had seen everything the highway had to offer: weather events, livestock escapes, a man driving a lawnmower to Tulsa for reasons he declined to explain, and on 3 prior occasions, shifter community incidents that required a particular kind of handling. She recognized the paw print tattoo on Vivienne Calloway's inner wrist before she'd finished reading the out-of-state ID. She asked Viv very quietly to sit in the front of the patrol car with the window down while she ran the name. The results came back in 40 seconds. Dee looked at it for a moment and looked at Viv. Vivienne Calloway. "There's a shifter council ordinance flag on your name out of Pawnee County. Something about an involuntary shift during a magnetometer survey?" It was a minor geological incident. "The magnetometer was fine," Dee responded. Were you the magnetometer?" Viv said, "Well, I was briefly part of the survey equipment. Yes. Long pause. Where are you headed? Viv, I'm headed to Tulsa. I have a consulting contract with the ATF field office. Dee, longer pause. Here's what we're going to do. 22 minutes later, Vivienne Calloway was standing in a boutique on Peoria Avenue in Tulsa's Brookside district, considering a vintage Western shirt in cream and turquoise that was so beautiful it almost made her forget the grass fire, her absent brother, and the outstanding warrant. Almost. Dee had explained the situation with the calm efficiency of a person who had worked out many situations. The Shifter Council warrant was real, but the Pawnee County office had a 3-week backlog. If Vivienne arrived in Tulsa as Vivienne, the ATF's own internal database would flag the name within 48 hours and the contract would evaporate. If she arrived as Victor, her brother Seb's legal middle name, which had never once been used by anyone in the Calloway family, she'd have 2 weeks to do the consulting job, find a Shifter Council liaison in Tulsa, and get the warrant dismissed before anybody noticed. Your hair's already short enough, and you've got a brother who's roughly your build. Do you even own anything that's not a field shirt? So, an hour later, Dee pulled back onto the highway, and in Tulsa, with a person in the passenger seat who was, in any practical sense that mattered, Vic Calloway. Western shirt, good boots, turquoise belt buckle, and a consultant's bearing that suggested competence and mild impatience with inefficiency. The transformation had taken 40 minutes, $240, and the loan of a very particular hat from a display rack that Dee had looked at for a long time before handing it over. You're going to need a cover story for that car, Dee said. Viv, stolen. I'll call Drew and tell him that his Tesla was stolen. Dee responded, well, it was not stolen. It's impounded at the Creek County facility. Oh, right. So, it was stolen, taken to Creek County, and voluntarily surrendered. Dee responded. I'm going to pretend you didn't say that. Viv responded, that seems wise for both of us. The Turner Turnpike ran out ahead of motorists not slowing down for smoke, winds, errant hawks, 80 miles per hour, and straight as a seismic survey line, pointing at Tulsa. The smoke from the grass fire was a smear in the rearview mirror. Somewhere in Stroud, Seb was presumably explaining himself to the Bristow volunteer fire crew, and Vivienne, who was now, for all practical purposes, Vic, watched the skyline of Tulsa materialize out of the late afternoon haze, and the feeling that she was about to read a formation she had not studied at all. She was a geologist. She was good at this. She told herself that twice. The scene was interesting. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol car on the Turner Turnpike, seen from behind. On the right, a faint column of smoke on the horizon, the last of the grass fire, looking almost picturesque in the golden afternoon light. End of chapter 1.